Getting ready for an upcoming cruise can really be a daunting task, especially for first-time cruisers. So in this video, I've broken down some of my best tips and advice for prior to your cruise, during your cruise, and even after. That way, you'll be totally prepared for any type of scenario that comes at you throughout your cruise experience. But if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Alanna, and I do videos all about cruising, cruise news, and cruise vlogs. So make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss another upload. Let's start off right with the advice with prior to your cruise. First off, I'm going to advise you to find a small backpack or bag for you to carry with you on the ship for embarkation day. You'll want to have this packed with some of your essential items like your swimsuit, flip-flops, a change of clothes, or any medication, things that you might want to have on hand and easy with you. Once you're separated from your big suitcases that get checked with a porter prior to you stepping on the cruise ship, you'll have that small backpack with any of those documents or things that you might need. Our next tip is to pack your medication. So aside from any prescribed medication, I always like to bring a little bit of extra, kind of like my own pharmacy, bringing Tylenol, Pepto-Bismol, cough drops, anything that I think I might need just in case. I don't like buying any of this stuff on the ship because you'll wind up spending a lot more than you were if you were to buy it at a pharmacy on land. So having it is just a nice ease of mind. Also having Band-Aids in there. You're going to be doing a lot of walking potentially on your cruise, so potential for blisters, things like that. Having that backup is just really nice to have just in case if you need it. My next tip is for you to have a general idea of what excursions you want to do in each port if you haven't already booked them ahead of time. A lot of times you can waste a lot of time and money without having a generalized plan of what you want to do, whether you want to have a beach lounge day or go have an active excursion riding ATVs or scuba diving or whatever it may have you. Having a general idea will at least give you a direction of what you want to do, and saving you some money and having that research ahead of time saves a lot of time in those beautiful ports. Our next tip and last tip for prior to the cruise is to make a stop at the bank or the ATM and grab some cash. Especially having small bills is really helpful ahead of time. That way you can tip your porter who takes your bag right when you check in at the port, or any other spectacular service throughout the cruise that deems to have an extra gratuity at the end of the cruise. Not to mention using cash in some ports is necessary if you want to take home some souvenirs. Now most will take credit cards, but just for reference, like the straw markets or any other items that you might want to barter for, it's always great to have some cash on hand as well. Now let's move on to some tips for during your cruise. You're ready to set sail on that beautiful cruise vacation? What do you need to know while you are at sea? If you are cruising on a ship that has reservations for specialty dining, like a dinner and a show, or entertainment that requires reservations, and you couldn't do this online, perhaps a comedy show or any other type of variety show, I urge you to try and make a reservation first thing when you get on the ship. That embarkation day will have a specific area where you can go, either guest services or maybe even a box office where you can go and make those reservations. Sometimes they often hold reservations for it to be made right on the ship. They'll have that additional availability that wasn't shown online. I've done this before and have gotten pretty lucky. So this rule also applies if you wanted to change perhaps your dining time to earlier or later or vice versa. But you would just want to check the cruise line's app or the printed daily schedule for where you would meet the maitre d' or where you would go for the box office to make all of these changes. Speaking of the app brings us to our next tip, where you will want to read the app for the daily schedule changes and see what you want to do each day while you're on the ship. Now keep in mind, there's really a lot more activities than what you will be able to participate in. It's kind of overwhelming thinking, oh, I want to see and do it all, because there's so many fun things going on. But just having a general idea and reading over the schedule will help you familiarize yourself with different areas and activities and things that are going on in the ship and where they generally happen. Not to mention, it also gives you a general idea of the different dining options and venues as well. They usually break everything down between the paid and the free options. Now, I've heard of first-time cruisers sometimes being confused about all of the different options, especially for dining, with there being so many different venues for you to eat at. One, just being confused about the main dining room. I've actually heard of first-time cruisers not making their way ever to the main dining room throughout the cruise, which I think is a real shame, thinking that it wasn't complimentary and they had to pay for it. So you want to just make sure that you familiarize yourself with all the different options. That way you're not missing out on anything that you didn't know you had access to. And since we're on the topic of cruise schedules, let's bring us to our next point, that you'll always want to look at that schedule and make sure you're aware of the all aboard time and the ship's time. Sometimes the ship will actually run on a different time schedule than the local port. Other times the ship will change and have clock changes, and you'll get a notification during the cruise, during your turn down service at night. They'll let you know that you're either losing or gaining an hour. But it's just always important to make note of this, especially to know when you need to be back on the ship. Your all aboard time is when you need to be back on, and no later than that. And you won't want to be late because you'll be referred to as a pier runner. And frankly, who wants that much of a stressful experience during your vacation? So now that you've had a fabulous time on your cruise and your vacation is unfortunately coming to a close, let's talk about those end of cruise and post cruise logistics. So before you get off the ship, you want to just make sure that you are settling your onboard account, whether it be with your credit card or cash. You'll want to have a look at your expenses prior to the last night. This is always top of mind for everyone on the last night of the cruise, but if you do this at least 2 nights before, you'll avoid any long lines at guest services. You can check your statement through the cruise line's app or request a printout anytime throughout the cruise at guest services, and this just helps you keep in mind of your expenses. Especially being a first-time cruiser, you want to make sure that you're not racking up a hefty bill. Our next tip is to be aware of the early self-assist program if you want to participate in it. This is the fastest way to get off the ship. Say you have a flight prior to 10 a.m. or right at 10 a.m., you might want to consider this, although you have to carry your bags off the ship, so meaning you will be rolling them off the ship, down the gangway, all the way till you get to your taxi. So keep in mind how many bags you have and whether or not this is something that you want to consider in, but it is the fastest way for you to get off if you are concerned about catching an early flight. If you don't want to participate in the self-assist program, that's totally fine. You will just want to be aware and pay attention to the paperwork they give you in your room the night before. It's always a shame though to see people struggling to get their bags off the ship well past the self-assist time, and they didn't know that they had luggage tags in their room provided by their stateroom attendant, and you just had to have your large suitcases outside your room by 11 p.m. So if you want to participate in having your bags brought off the ship for you, you just take out your PJs, any other change of clothes, your essentials, your keys, your medication, your toothbrush, everything like that to get you through the night until the next morning. And then once you get off the ship, you will reclaim your larger suitcases outside in the baggage claim area, making it a lot easier for you if you have a lot of suitcases, and then you can have a porter come help you. Well, I hope you found these tips helpful for a little bit of advice and tips for pre-cruise, during your cruise, and post-cruise. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below if you found these tips helpful or if you have any other tips you want to share with the fellow viewers as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, ciao for now.